Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq, with daily insight on the Nasdaq 100 index, or the NDX, which is made up of 100 of the largest domestic and international non-financial innovative companies listed on Nasdaq. The NDX has been the barometer for U.S. large-cap growth and also one of the best performing indexes over the last decade and a half, not to mention one of the most liquid index ecosystems in the world. Joining me this Thursday afternoon, we have Joyce, Managing Director on Nasdaq's Market Intelligence Desk, for an update on technical levels to watch in the Nasdaq 100. And Brian, really what the question is, we are higher today, certainly, stronger into the close. Can we actually string together more than one positive session in this market?
It would certainly be nice to see. It's been a while since we've had a nice bounce, really since March. I think there's definitely some signs that this bounce that we're starting right now could have some legs to it. I don't know if it's going to be, the low is in and then we're ready to resume higher on a longer term basis. But I think in the very near term that this bounce certainly could have some legs to it.
All right, let's take a look at your first chart here of the Nasdaq 100 and give us some fresh levels to watch.
Absolutely. So, what I think is interesting, one of the things that the reasons I think we could see a bounce here, when we had that initial low made in late February, we had about 25% of the index making 52-week lows. When we retested those lows in March, only about 16% were making lows. So we had a bit of a bullish divergence there in the breadth. And we're seeing something similar now where we made initial lows in early May. And last week, we retested those lows and on an intraday basis, mid lower lows. And we can see the breadth versus those two periods. In the beginning of the month, 34% of the index was making new lows. And this week, only about 10% was making new lows. So we have a bullish divergence there. So, could have a similar outcome where, in March, we had about a 17% rally in the index. This time around, we're up about 4% off the lows, I believe that is. So, let's call it 7% off the lows. So I think we could have more to run here. What I do want to keep in mind is we're still not even yet above the 20-day moving average. So here we're looking at the Bollinger Bands, which in the middle line here is a 20-day average and then two standard deviations above and below. You can see clearly we're not even above the 20-day moving average. So we still have, a lot to prove. If we can get above last week's high, which is around 12,570, I should say, 12,570. I think that would be, a good signal that maybe this move higher has got some legs to it. You can also see that we highlighted last week. We are seeing some strength here at the 50% Fibonacci retracement of the entire uptrend, starting from March of 20 at the lows to the highs in November of 21. So we've retraced about 50% of that advance, a logical area where we could see, a short-term relief rally.
And Brian, you're always taking a look at market breadth as one of your indicators. Anything of note there?
I was just highlighting that, Jill, is that the 52-week lows, we're only about 10% of the index was making 52-week lows last week when we made an intraday low, whereas earlier in the month, about 35% of the index was making 52-week lows. So the breadth right there is definitely improving as far as stocks, fewer and fewer stocks making lows. So that's certainly a positive to see. Again, I don't think we're out of the woods by any means. If we look at the ratio of growth to value, especially, we could see that, it's made a clear breakdown of a double top pattern. And my yellow line here is the minimum measured move for that ratio to get to. So on a relative basis, it looks like growth still has a ways to go if this technical measure plays out.
All right, Brian, appreciate the insight as always. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq.